Okay, so we are in the guided practice 10, and we're going to be looking at number 3 here. And this one looks to be a increase-decrease type problem. And I'm saying that based on the fact that we're seeing down by 6%. So let's take a peek here. So employment in one industry was down by 6%, or about 1,200 people. How many did the industry employ before and after the change? Okay, so I'm going to use their words. So we're going to have percent and people. And we're going to have before, the change, and after. And then we're going to plug in what we know. So all the before, the old, whatever comes previous is always your 100%. So my 100 goes here. It is down, so it's a decrease by 6%. And that means that my after is going to be subtracting 6. So that's going to give me 94%. Now, when you read this here, be careful to read it more than once. Employment in one industry was down by 6%, or about 1,200 people. That's referring to the change. So the 1,200 goes here. And then it says, how many people did they employ before and after the change? So I'm going to go ahead and find the before, and then I'm going to go ahead and subtract to get the after. You could choose to get the after and add back to get the before, your choice. I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply here. So this is going to give me 6x equals 12 with 4 zeros. And let's go ahead and divide both sides by not 2, but 6. And that will give us 20,000. Right? Okay. So that tells me my before. And then note that it says down by 6%. So my after is going to take my before and subtract the change. So we're going to take the 20,000 and we're going to subtract the 1,200. And we'll end up with 18,800 people after. So those are my two answers. There's my after, and then up here is my before. Okay, so I can get both of those pretty quickly. All right, 3B. Is raising a tax from 10% to 11% a 1% change or a 10% change? Justify each answer. So the answer here is both, okay? So if we think about putting this into a chart, so let's label this as before, a change, and an after. And the thing here that gets a little bit awkward here is how you label the percents, and these also have percents, right? So we are going to focus in on these two. We are going from 10% to 11%. So if you think about the percent and the amount, okay? And actually, I'm going to back up here a second. In my list, I'm going to have before, I'm going to have 10%, the change, and 11%. And instead of going with before, I'm going to go with original. Sorry, no, I'm changing this up on you. But I just had an idea as to how this might be a little bit clearer. Okay. Now, the original should always be 100%. And I'm going to choose an amount that doesn't look similar so that we get some different numbers. So I'm going to go with 20. So let's present our amount. Our original amount is 20. If we want to look at 10% of that, so 10% of 20, now you can do this in your head or you can go ahead and cross multiply, but that's going to be essentially if we divide by 5 and divide by 5 here. So we're kind of using a factor of change. Then what we're doing is this will become 5, right? 10 or 2, right? So 10% is $2. And then the 11%, if we divide that by 5, you end up with 2.2. So $2.20 if we're talking money. Okay. And then what's the change, right? So the change is an increase in 1%. So you can look at it as a 1% change in this manner, right? And so if you were over here, if you looked at 1% and you divided that by 5, you would get the 20 cents, right, that you added on. So in this way, the change is 1%. Okay. Now, instead, let's think about looking at it in a different way. Let's think about looking at it as percent, right? And let's think about, instead of listing the 10% in the percent category, I'm going to list it in the amount category so that I have a before, a change, and an after, right? And so the before is always the 100%, and this is the original, the before amount is going to be this one, the 10%. And the after is going to be 11%, right? And then the change is 1% here. So let's see. How then could I find this value, this percent change here? Now I know that it's a little bit confusing that it also has percent values here, but let's pretend that's not confusing for the moment, right? So at the beginning we had 10, now we have 11, the change is 1, right? And that original is going to be our 100% because it's the before amount. And if you go ahead and cross multiply here, so put in our fraction bars and equal signs, and we go ahead and cross multiply, we're going to end up with 10x equals 100. Divide both sides by 10, and there's where we get a 10% change. Okay, so it has to do with whether you're looking at the 10% as part of the original, which is what we did on the left, or if you're looking at that 10% as the original and you're changing it to 11%. So I know that that can seem a little bit odd, but it is possible.